Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group Tenaga Nasional Berhad TMB from class JBA 114-5J, Madam Zana Hassan, and to our panel, Professor Mada Nur Izzah Ismail and Puan Rohani Zan Malazan. I am Muhammad Afiq bin Fauzi.
I'm Amir Arif Ahmed.
I am Farah Nadia binti Syamuddin.
I am Nur Asyafiqah binti Muhammad Zakir.
I am Nur Izzah Atira binti Muhammad Afizi.
I am Nurul Dania binti Helmi.
So, financial analysis, what is that? Financial analysis is the process of evaluating businesses, project, budgets, and other finance-related transactions to determine their performance and suitability. Typically, financial analysis is used to analyze whether an entity is stable, solvent, liquid, or profitable. Next. Objective for the financial analysis: reviewing the performance of a company over the past period, assessing the current position and operational efficiency, predicting growth and profitability prospect, loan decision by financial institution and banks. Analysis of the balance sheet TMB from year 2017 till 2019. Total asset budget and total liability and equity budget shows increasing year by year. Profit loss statement, interest obligation. Next. TMB interest obligation for 3 years show the highest interest paid and interest received are in 2019 and the lowest in 2017. This show better interest received because it increased year by year. Next. Profit loss statement, dividend distribution. Next. Dividend distribution for Tenaga Nasional Berhad for 3 years show the highest dividend paid are in 2017 and the lowest dividend paid in 2019. For dividend received the highest amount is in 2018, meanwhile the lowest are in 2017. In the end, dividend distribution received show a better performance because increase in high value and price change for a year just a small range. Next. Ratio analysis. Ratio analysis is a quantitative method of gaining insight or information into a company liquidity, operating efficiency, and profitability by studying the company financial statements such as balance sheet and income statement. Ratio analysis consists of liquidity ratio, leverage ratio, activity ratio, and profitability ratio.
Okay, first we have a liquidity ratio. A liquidity ratio is a type of financial ratio used to determine a company's ability to pay its short-term debt obligation. As we see for 2017-2019, the both quick ratio and current ratio is decreasing year by year. Next. Second, we have leverage ratio. A leverage ratio is a look at how much capital comes in the form of debt or loans or assesses the ability of a company to meet its financial obligation. For 2017-2019, debt ratio is increasing year by year, but what the debt to ratio is decreasing from 17 to 18, but return to increasing from 18 to 19. Next. Next, we have activity ratio. An activity ratio is a type of analysis on how efficiently a company is leveraging the assets on its balance sheet to generate revenue and cash. For 2017 to 2019, the inventory turnover is increasing from 17 to 18, but it decreasing from 2018 to 2019. Next. Last, we have a profitability ratio. Profitability ratio are ratios that are used to assess a business ability to generate earnings relative to its revenue, operating costs, balance sheets, assets, or shareholders' equity over time. There are gross profit margin, net profit margin, return on asset, and return on the end return of equity. For 2017 until 2019, all of the gross profit margin is decreasing. The net profit margin is decreasing from 70 to 18, but increasing back from 18 to 19. The return on asset is increasing year by year. And last, return of equity is increasing 70 to 18, and also increasing from 18 to 19. Okay, next. Next, we have horizontal analysis. The horizontal analysis, or known as trend analysis, is a financial analysis technique that shows the change of the financial statements item over a period of time. It is a tool to evaluate the trend situation. The statements for two or more periods are used in horizontal analysis. It also involves, like before, liquidity ratio, leverage, activity, and profitability ratio. Next. First, we have liquidity ratio. I already separate the 2017 and 2019, and we can see that all of it is poor because year by year it continue decreasing. Okay, next. Next, we have an activity ratio. I will see that inventory turnover is increasing for 2017, 2019 is a good trend, but for 2018, 2019 it's a poor because it decreasing. Okay, next. Next, we have leverage ratio. Leverage ratio, I will see that the debt ratio is increasing for 2017, 2018 is a poor, while the debt on equity ratio is good because it's decreasing from 1.22 times to 0.837. 2018, 2019, both is poor because debt ratio continue to increasing and the debt of equity ratio is increasing. Okay, next. Last, we have profitability ratio. As profitability ratio, gross profit margin and net profit margin is a poor because it decreasing from 2000 to 2018, while the return on asset and return of equity is increasing, is a good trend. For 2018-2019, GPM, gross profit margin is poor because it continue decreasing, while the net profit margin is good because it start increasing 2019. And return on asset is good also because it continue increasing. Last, in return of equity is poor because it decreasing for 18 to 19. Next. Last, we have vertical analysis. Vertical analysis is a financial statement analysis in which each line item is listed as a percentage of a base figure within the statement. This vertical analysis, we use the comparison between the Tenaga Nasional Berhad and Malakoff, his competitors, by based on 2019 data. He also, like I said before, is including the ratios. Okay, next. First, we have liquidity ratio. We see that TMB is a less ratio than Malakoff, meaning that Malakoff is perform better in the liquidity ratio. For the activity ratio, we see that inventory turnover and average collection period, we see that TMB is perform better than Malakoff, while the total asset turnover is mainly Malakoff perform better than TMB. Okay, next. Let's have a leverage ratio. The leverage ratio, we see that TMB has more debt than Malakoff, and also that TMB have higher debt equity ratio than the Malakoff. So the last week we have profitability ratio. As we see that all of it is performed by TMB because TMB have high amount than Malakoff. And we see that 4 of it of the ratio. Okay.
So, we move to risk and statistical analysis. The introduction is the purpose of this section is to focus on the estimation and evaluation of the risk and the return of on selected company's stock price over the risk and return of the KLCI. Statistical analysis is a method to measure not only the risk associated with the company but also its potential reward. This is the risk and return assessment. So we move to risk analysis of TMB, Malakoff, and KLCI. The expected return of TMB is lower than Malakoff and KLCI, while variance of TMB is higher risk than Malakoff, and standard deviation of TNB is higher than Malakoff. Then coefficient of variation of TNB is higher risk and Malakoff has lower risk. Then we move to regression analysis comparison of TMB and Malakoff to KLCI. The correlation of coefficient of TMB is close to positive 1 and it has a strong positive correlation. Malakoff COC has weak positive correlation. Then TNB has higher variability of response data and higher impact of company performance to KLCI with its correlation of determination. TNB alpha indicate the TNB fund has outperformed its benchmark index by 1.2%. Then TNB beta show that the price of TNB securities are more volatile than the market around 70% and has risky investment. Then the NBP value and alpha value from the regression equation shows that the NB's P value lower than alpha value, so it should be rejected. Then for security market line SML of the NB, stock of the NB were overvalued. This is a quote. because estimated return of TNB was 0.3328, which is below the SMA line, represented by the risk-free return of 3.320. This stock is considered as a risky investment and thus only suitable for the investor that prefer risky investment or risk taker investor.
So, security market line SML of Malakoff. Malakoff were the same as TNB where it is noted as overvalued. This occurred when estimated return of Malakoff was 0.5077, which is below the SML line represented by the risk-free return of 3.32. However, Malakoff has lesser risk as shown by its beta representing its systematic risk, which is suitable for the non-risk taker investor. Intrinsic value of TNB and Malakoff. TNB have high total amount of dividends paid off of shareholder relative to the net income of the company. TNB have low retention rate, which means that TNB have most earnings are being shifted to investors in the form of dividends than Malakoff. TNB's return of equity is higher than Malakoff. For the dividend yield, TNB were less than Malakoff. Current market price for TNB was higher than Malakoff. TNB has high price earning, which indicates the stock price is high relative to earnings and possibly will become overvalued stocks. TNB expected earning per share has high amount of Malakoff have low amount. TNB instructive value is higher than Malakoff, so it indicates that TNB have high value of assets. Next. So conclusion, Tenaga Nasional Berhad can be used as a good share for potential investor to look up more compared to Malakoff, especially for a risk taker investor. Based on overall risk and return, TNB higher average return than Malakoff. For variance and standard deviation, TNB high risk compared to Malakoff. For coefficient of variation, TNB have high risk because TNB have high CV. For beta of market, TNB have high beta market than Malakoff, so the risk is higher. TNB rate of return is higher than Malakoff. For market return, the MB return is the same as Malakoff respectively. The SML graph shows that the stock of the NB is plotted above the SML line, so the stock is overvalued. For intrinsic value, the NB DPR is better than Malakoff. Then ROE of the NB show a higher rate than Malakoff. The EPS of the NB was good because it was positive value recorded in the year 2019. While for PE ratio, overall the NB shows higher ratio than Malakoff. So recommendations, according to the risk and return analysis, it is good for risk taker investor to buy the stock. Meanwhile, for the non-risk taker investor, either maintain the number of shares outstanding or sell the share to gain more profit due to good financial health. For SD, it indicates that the TNB's risk is high. This is why investor who want to invest in high risk, it will get high return. For CV, TNB has high CV, so investors who want to invest in high risk are encouraged to invest because the company have high return value. Lastly, TNB SML value is higher than the Malakoff and it shows that the TNB is overvalued, so investors should buy this stock due to expected return is high in the future. Potential risk taker investor is recommended to enter the market with buy the shares.
To present the technical analysis. Next. Technical analysis is a trading discipline employed to evaluate investments and identify trading opportunities by analyzing statistical trends gathered from trading activities such as price movement and volume. Next. Comparative analysis is to compare the price actions and movement of others in the selected sector. It can therefore be completed by comparing the KLCI with the selected business. Next. The indices. KLCI stands for Kuala Lumpur Composite Index. This index is extracted from 100 companies selected by Bursa Malaysia from a cross-section of Malaysia's total listed companies. This index provided us with a benchmark that represents the economic growth of Malaysia. Next.
Next is indices price movement chart of KLCI in 2017. Based on the chart, show a bullish trend in January but then bearish by September. The price trend might be changed because of the political issues faced in our country that time. Next is price movement chart of KLCI in 2018. The chart show a bullish trend in early January and turned out to be bearish in May. The price trend is bullish because Malaysia is having a general election during that time. Then in July, the price increased until August. It showed that KLCI made a good signal but has not yet hit the previous resistance line. For price movement KLCI 2019, the chart shows a bearish signal at early 2019. The graph pattern shows diminishing where the price are sloping downward, but in December it showed bullish pattern. For price movement chart for TMB 2017, in KLCI chart, it showed that the price movement almost fluctuated. The price movement is typically depend on supply and demand in the market at the same time depending on the internal and external factors. For price movement chart in 2018, price movement of TMB is slowly increasing starting from January 2018. From May until early July 2019 show the price movement is declining rapidly. So as a conclusion for price movement TNB 2018 is bearish signal. For 2019, the price movement of TNB is having a bearish signal start from early January 2019 until December 2020. All this happened because of strong reason. From January until May, the price movement was declining rapidly. For Malakoff 2017, the price movement of Malakoff show a bearish signal. At this time, Malakoff is at the beginning to start build a strong company in Malaysia. For 2018, based on the chart, it show an up and down price trend. This pattern also can be called as sideways pattern. This may caused by Malakoff still taking time to raise in their company. So for Malakoff in 2019, Malakoff and TMB have a big gap in terms of price movement to differentiate between these two companies. TNB is much powerful because TNB is the main source in Malaysia and Malakoff is a newer company and compete with TNB in a few upcoming years.
Next is trend analysis. Trends can be both upward and downward movement, with also relating to bullish and bearish markets respectively. Trend analysis is based on what has happened in the past in the market and give traders an idea of what will happen in the future. There are three main types of trends, which is short, intermediate, and long term. Support occurs where a downturn is expected to pause due to a concentration of demand. Resistance occurs where an uptrend is expected to pause temporarily due to a concentration of supply. This support and resistance will help investors to identify when the time is suitable for buying and selling stocks to gain more profit and less loss. Next is a form of strategy for investing or trading. Involves predicting how the market is going to shift. There are variable types of indicators such as simple moving average convergence divergence, relative strength index, rate of change, and stochastic oscillator. Next.
For simple moving average, arithmetic moving average calculated by adding recent price and then dividing that figure by the number of time periods in the calculation average. Buy signal, it happens when the red line is crossing above the blue line, and sell signal, it happens when the red line is crossing below the blue line. So in short-term SMA, in January 2019 until April 2019, the graph of the MB is going downtrend. There is no signal buy or sell signal in this short-term SMA. For intermediate term SMA, the graph is showing downtrend from January. Then the graph is uptrend in June and uptrend arrow is showing a buying signal as the red line is crossing the blue line.
For the moving average convergence divergence, used to signal the trend and momentum behind a security, consists of two exponential moving average covering two different time periods that help to measure the security momentum. Buying signal is when the MACD crosses above the signal line, above the oscillator or zero line, and the MACD histogram turns up below zero. While the sell signal is when the MACD crosses below the signal line, below the oscillator or zero line, and the MACD histogram turns up above zero. Next. For short-term MACD, the MACD line crosses above the signal line in the middle of February 2019, and it is a signal buy for investors. In beginning of March 2019, the MACD line crosses below signal line and zero line. Immediate MACD. In March, the MACD line crosses below the signal line and the zero line and histogram graph downward, so it's a sell signal for investors. Then the MACD line crosses above the signal line and histogram graph upward in the end of May 2019. So it's a buy signal for investors. Next.
Next is Relative Strength Index (RSI). It measures the magnitude of recent price change in evaluate overbought or oversold condition in the price of a stock or other assets. Buy signal when the RSI is reached below 30 and then move up, crossing over the oversold line, which indicates that the stock are undervalued. For sell signal when the RSI is reached above 70 and then move down, crossing below the overbought line, which indicates that the stock are overvalued. For the short-term RSI in January shows that RSI almost reaching 70 near overbought, indicating sell signal. However, in the end of the month, RSI fall almost reaching 30 at undersold, despite which was shown the buy signal. For intermediate RSI, the significant appearance of RSI is in May and June, reaching below 30 at oversold, indicating buying signal. In June, the stocks reached its highest point, which is above 70 at overbought, indicating selling signal.
Is a momentum technical indicator. It calculates the change in price percentage between the current price and the price for a certain number of periods. Buying signal is when rate of change is above zero and again starts rising and crosses the previous top. It shows that the uptrend is very much in its speed. For a sell signal is when rate of change is above zero line but falling. It shows that the speed of the uptrend is slowing down. Next. For short-term ROC, buying signal displays in February and March of 2019. The ROC line crossed above zero. Meanwhile, selling signal emerged of ROC appeared in January and March 2019. ROC is above zero line but falling. Next. For intermediate ROC, from the start, ROC crosses over the zero line in March, showing buying signal. Meanwhile, selling signal is in June and July. The ROC is a cross below the zero line. Next.
For stochastic oscillator, a leading momentum indicator that was developed by George Lane. Two important components in this indicator, which is K% line and D% line. For buy signal, emerge when the K% is above the D% in the oversold range below 20. For sell signal, it happens when the K% line is below the D% line in the overbought range above 80. Short-term oscillator, the buying signal was in the month of February 2019. The K% line crosses over the D% line in the oversold region. Next, the selling signal is at the end of February 2019 when the K% line is below the D% line in the overbought range above 80. For intermediate term oscillator, the first indication of selling signal was in February 2019. It was shown that K% line crossed over D% line in the overbought region. The buying signal was appeared June 2019 as the K% line crosses over the D% line in the oversold region.
Finally, the analysis indicates recommendation for current and future investors. For short term in SMA, current investor, we recommend sell, future investor buy. For stochastic, current investor sell, future investor buy. Up until RSI, we recommend sell for current investor and future investor to buy. And lastly, for MACD, we recommend current investor to hold while future investor to buy. Next. For the intermediate term, in SMA, we recommend current investor to sell while the future investor to buy. And then for MACD, we recommend current investor to hold and then the future investor to buy. For RSI, ROC and stock has stake, we recommend current investor to sell while the future investor to buy, to hold. That is all from us. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.